Hello everybody, what's up? So in this audio lesson, the idea was to show you how a first class with me would be, okay? This would be a lesson, for a beginner student, more or less, okay? But also for somebody that is around, an intermediate thing, that can be, it can be also, helpful, for probably a more advanced student, to maybe to review some of the basic stuff, which is never something just something extra. Okay, it can be useful too, but in principle, this designed and thought for somebody to something to start off with. Okay, to learn Spanish. And the idea with this material that I wrote is that you will be able to have and know, the basics of Spanish, about, for example, conjugation, okay, and time tenses, okay, and many other things, just like in English, okay, reported speech, and all those kind of things, word types, okay. Here, about that, here you can see a study program, okay, like the different topics, okay, that I covered in this material that I wrote, okay. The idea again is that you will be able to have a solid general knowledge of Spanish, and knowing how all the basic gears of the language work, okay, to just study with any other material also, okay, and have all this material that I wrote as a base, as a guidance, if you want, okay, something to refer to, okay, when one and two, for example, it can be when you, for example, have don't remember something about the conjugations or time tenses, things that are actually basic, about the language. Which of course is like just any other course or academy, or how in, I would say, almost or all the ways of learning, okay, more or less have, okay, you just see again, time tense is more or less what is on the study program that I just showed you, okay. So the idea is that to have a complete knowledge, a base of Spanish, and probably afterwards we can add more things, okay, we can study just anything else, but again, the idea is that completing this study program, that you can know again, the basics of Spanish, and so that it can be easier than to study with any other material or exercises that you can develop and do by yourself, okay, because I'm going to show you afterwards more. Maybe you saw those examples that I showed in my pages, okay, for example, how you can do exercises out of an article or of a video, an audio, whatever, okay. But I thought it was important for you to know what this study program can give you, okay. And also, of course, that we can study with any other material, okay. The idea is to make it as complete and integrative as possible. Okay. So, summing it up, we are trying that you can have, a very complete a study program. Okay. So here, simple present and or presente simple in Spanish. It's used to talk about habits, current circumstances, or state of things, narrations, things that are or stay in a certain way, and some other variants, just as in English. You will see this in the examples below. Ser, estar, and haber are some of the most fundamental verbs to learn in Spanish. 3 of the 4 meanings or translations of be. We will also mention hacer, which is do, and tener, which is have got. But it's fundamental to understand the verbs ser, estar, and haber because, as we mentioned, are the most used equivalents of be. You know, you can see here that we are talking about very, very basic verbs, you know, that just as in English, we use it all the time, okay? Be, have, and do, okay? We are talking about those verbs, so you can see how this is, you know, actually the very basics, you know, of the language. And so also we are seeing here that be in Spanish turns into ser, estar, haber, and also tener, we are gonna see now, okay? So be can turn into 4 different words in Spanish. This is what we are speaking about here, okay? So here, note, tener is rarely translated as be, only for example to say something like, that tree is 10 meters tall. So you can see there that even, you know, if in English you use the word is, that in Spanish is translated as tener, which mostly means to have got. But for, you know, as mentioned here, for some, you know, very specific examples, tener can be a translation of be, okay? Like this example of the tree, okay, the height of the tree. This is because of how Spanish works, okay? There are certain things, as we are gonna see now, that are just, you know, proper, you know, intrinsic, if you want, of the language, and just work that way, and we kind of have to try and understand it, okay, in that way, because it's just how, you know, naturally how the language works, okay? Mostly tener is translated as have or have got. For this, would have to get used and get to know when one or another of the 4 possible translations of be, ser, estar, haber, and tener would be used, and what's the equivalence between languages. So that's what I was telling you. So be can be translated as ser, estar, haber, and in very few examples as tener. These are fundamental, basic verbs for Spanish that are used all the time, just like in English. We will see how these verbs are conjugated, but first let's mention when each of these 4 variations would be likely more suitable to use. Okay, so here now we are getting into the aspect of when, you know, the equivalents of be are used, okay? And going on, ser is used for identifying something or somebody, express permanent characteristics, indicate origin, pertenence or possession, to indicate profession or ideology, mention what some, well, okay, and you can see, you know, the list goes on. So here you have examples. We're going to read some examples. Ella es María, she is Mary. Este es el lago Pausuri, this is the Pausuri Lake. Él es el instructor. He is the instructor. Ella es muy alta. She is very tall. Él es muy inteligente. He is very intelligent. Okay, so you can see here examples for this. You can see that in English it will always be a conjugation of be, of course, because we are saying that these four words are equivalents of be, okay? Or that we are talking about how it can be an equivalent of be, which is a basic verb that we are gonna use in many most of the times, okay, most of the sentences. Then estar is to situate in space, location, indicate permanence, express emotional health states, to form the present continuous. And examples, for example, Londres está en Inglaterra, London is in England. Mi familia está en Francia, my family is in France. ¿Dónde estás? Where are you? Esta roca está aquí desde hace 500 años. This rock is here since 500 years. Okay. Tener, to express age, possession, emotions, physical states, express necessity or advice. Examples, ese auto tiene 50 años, that car is 50 years old. La prenda tiene una etiqueta, the garment has a label. Okay. Then we have the other example, like the one of the tree. Ese árbol tiene 10 metros de alto. That tree is 10 meters tall. Okay. Here is tiene, which comes from tener, is an equivalent of is, as we saw before. And also, for example, here we have another similar example. Este camino tiene 10 kilómetros de largo. This road is 10 kilometers long. Okay, there you have a similar example, okay, where is becomes tener. Okay, here, este camino tiene, okay, and that tiene is, tener conjugated, Those are like the exceptions, the one of the tree, and for example, this one too, okay? Tengo que ir al baño, I gotta go to the toilet, okay? So, most times it is translated as to have got, okay? And this word either replaces the have or had, used in perfect tenses in English, or as well it's an equivalent of there is, there are, etc. Both options, of course, apply for any time tense. For example, hay chances de que llueva. There are chances of rain. Hay mucho viento hoy. There's a lot of wind today. Hay muchas opciones para elegir. There are many options to choose. Él ha llegado a su casa. He has arrived home. Ellos se han ido al Caribe. They have gone to the Caribbean. Okay. Okay. So up to here we explained, as you can see, much of how the words that into which be translates, okay, in Spanish. And continuing, here are the conjugation charts of two of the verbs equivalents of be, ser, and estar as examples. These charts can be very useful to see the complete map. You've got the time tense, simple present in this case, pronouns, I, you, he, etc., and the modes, affirmative, negative, and question. These are the essential things to know when trying to write a sentence. These three elements are the very base of any sentence, and for studying verb conjugation is also key. So here we have the chart, okay, that it's very, pretty self-explanatory and shows you, what's the idea, okay? you have time tense, which here is present simple, presente simple, because it's what this first material is about. Then we have the pronouns, yo, tú, él, nosotros, which would be I, you, he, she, and so on, and the modes, affirmative, negative, and question, and how any word. Yeah, you can, here we see, okay, verb ser, but for example it could be any other, and we could just change the verb, okay, and see how the chart would be for another verb, okay. So this chart can be repeated any amount of times just by changing the verb. What changes is the verb and the time tense, okay. So because those precisely are the the elements that change in the language, okay, when you speak. So here you can see how, for example, in this case, ser would be, okay, in each mode for each person in simple present, okay. Yo soy, tú eres, él, ella, eso es. Then you can see that for the negative you just add no, okay, no, before the same word than in affirmative. And for the question mode, you just write the verb. Most commonly is the verb and then the pronoun and the rest of the question, okay, and the question mark. But it can be first, also it can also be the person first and then the verb, okay. Here you also have another the same chart, but for estar, yo estoy, tú estás, él, ella, eso está, etc. Okay, and the same thing for the modes, okay. We'll mention more details about how the conjugation works afterwards, okay, about the modes and so on, but it's pretty much what you see here, okay, in these charts. These elements are base, and it would be useful to take them into account along your study of the language. These charts synthesize the fundamentals of the language. Elements more, elements less, these three variants appear all the time in the language. Here we can see, going to the examples. In affirmative, él lee libros en español, which is, he reads books in Spanish. Now we have the same sentence, but in negative mode. Él no lee libros en español. And in question mode, él lee libros en español. Okay, so you can see that. Let's mention another interesting example or aspect, okay, that, for example, about the word order, okay. Maybe at some point there are gonna be references of how the words are organized, okay, but I would say that that would be in very specific things, because for the most part, and this is very convenient thing, Spanish and English is very similar, in the talking about the word order, okay. Of course it's not exactly the same, but it's very similar. I would say that it's around the 70 or 80% similar, okay, and there's just a 30 or 20% difference in just some things, okay. So that's a good convenience. But these are things that mentioning them is very interesting, okay, for you to know, okay. So to start off, okay, studying, knowing that about this aspect, okay, to have the concept, okay, because you can start studying knowing that Spanish and English, as I was saying, is similar in its structure, is very similar, okay, about the word order, okay. So for example, you can see here, él, he lee, reads libros, books, and in español, Spanish. You can see it's exactly word by word the same order, okay. In the negative, it is exactly the same also. Él, he, no, doesn't, lee, read libros, books, en español, in Spanish. You see? And the question is just slightly different because in Spanish we don't use additional verbs, okay, extra verbs like do, okay, to make questions because it just works that way, okay. We don't have any extra verbs, okay, for questions. Él lee libros en español would be, does he read? So the only thing that is different there from English is that word, the do, does, okay, in this case, does he, that it's only that word that is not here, that doesn't have an equivalent, but it's just, as you can see, it's just a minimal, thing, for example, in these three examples, just as a reference. So here we have more examples.